Hey everybody! Thank you for being so patient with me and Miss Beverly during these last day and a half, what it feels like at least. So I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. The good news is the show will go on, right? We are going to have this show. I'm going to be having a discussion with Beverly regardless. The bad news is the video is a no-go, so it's just going to be an audio, all right? So I do apologize about that, but it's gonna happen because it's one of those things that I feel just needs to happen. Like it just needs to be talked about, everything that we're gonna be talking about. So yes, so let's do this. So let me share this every which place right now to let people know that this is happening. And then we will invite Miss Beverly over to our chat, okay? So here it is. Okay. So hi everybody! I'm seeing everyone come in. That's so exciting. Hello everyone. All right. So I preemptively said this just a few seconds ago, but I'll say it again to all the people that just came in. The good news is we are going through with this video. I'm about to invite Beverly right now. The not so good news is that the video is a no-go, so it's just going to be audio right now, and I truly, truly apologize for that, but for some weird reason, the video for Beverly just doesn't work. Okay? So we are going to invite her right now. Let's do it. Let's do it. Did we do it? I know we did. All right, so in the meantime, let me read this once again. Okay. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. I'm going to put this over here first. We're going to wait for some more people to get on. Let's wait for more people because she's got her slew of people coming too. Let's do that while I work this out as well. All right. Okay. All right. It's working. It's working.
Hello? Good evening, Lonnie. I'm here.
Ah, yay! So everyone in the chat right now, can you guys hear Beverly? Can everyone hear Beverly? Give me a comment that you can hear her.
Hello, everyone.
We're waiting for some comments. Waiting for some comments.
Hello.
Just let me know you can hear Beverly right now.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, Kelly. Jackie,
Hi,
you're saying
Jackie.
yes. Hannah, you're saying yes.
Hi, Jackie. Hi, Rebel Zell. Hi, Hannah.
Beautiful. So, okay. So to everyone who waited so patiently for this wonderful, beautiful person, this is a Larimar necklace and my Larimar ring. That's right. So for everyone who waited, first of all, thank you so much. I know it's been absolutely just bananas these last day and a half. So the good news is the show will go on. Beverly is here. She's with us. She's going to be talking with us, but the video unfortunately will not be part of this process, and which shames me because Beverly is such a beautiful person, and I'm sure you got your outfit and your hair all good and everything, probably looking all fabulous.
Girl. Oh my goodness.
Well, you know what? You know what you do after this one? You do a live video just to show your fabness.
I think I might keep up on that. Just say, go and check out that video, but this is what I looked like when I was on the air.
Exactly. So let me do your quick little bio here, and then we'll jump right into the conversation because I have been waiting so long to finally talk to you.
Leilani,
So,
I'm ready, baby. I'm ready. I'm ready.
So, Beverly Smith is also known as Dr. Beverley in the Conjure community, has been a spiritual teacher and civil rights advocate since the early 1990s. She's a spoken word artist and storyteller. Social justice is her passion. Her interests include contemporary West, my thingy is acting crazy. Here it is. Contemporary West Indian folk literature, African American folk magic, herbalism, natural healing, and revolutionary arts of all kinds. So I invited you onto my magical page because I have respected your Facebook page and you as a person and your podcast for such a long time. We've been Facebook friends for quite a while.
Several years. I remember when I first started my podcast and I heard you do a beautiful rendition of that challenge that Samuel Jackson had us do. Do you remember that one? The singing, the chanting, and you chanted it and you collaborated with another artist on that, and a musician, and it was fabulous. And I called you up and I said, can I put you on the podcast? And you were very gracious in accepting my invitation, and that was very well received episode. Thank you so much. And but I have enjoyed your works. I'm really enjoying your page, the magical page online with the herbalism and the formulas. Girl, I'm writing them formulas down. Yes, I am.
Yes, that's what it's all about.
Definitely.
That is what it's all about. And it's true. And for those of you who didn't know that, a couple of years ago, back in 2014, Samuel L. Jackson created a challenge, right? And this challenge was called Sing for Freedom. And it was a challenge that he actually posed to, famous people. He was basically saying to famous people, sing for change, and he created like a little verse and he wanted people to make a song out of it, and no one did it except regular average people. And my friend Jamal had done it. He was wonderful to ask me to come and sing some opera in the background for him. And then Beverly just picked that up, ran with it with her show, and it just was like a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I think that started a really good friendship, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. I have a lot of admiration for you. Of course, we share very similar spirituality, and we both have a great interest in herbalism and the magical and medicinal properties of herbs. So you and I have a lot in common. Plus, we're goddesses, honey. We're goddesses.
Say it again, girl.
Goddesses,
that is the truth. And it's true. And one of the things that we do have in common, and one of the things, like I said, the whole reason why you're on the show is how much I've respected your post especially when it comes to social justice, right? And socio-political pieces. And not necessarily about the pagan community specifically, although I do want to go that route, but just in general, your advocacy, your posts, your voice, it's loud, it's present, it's factual, it's passionate, and people are listening to that. And I want you to know that people are listening to that, because I know sometimes it can feel like, oh my God, it's like I'm screaming to a wall.
Yes. Sometimes it feels like I'm in the wilderness crying alone to the night sky. I mean, the thing about advocating for justice is that it's not fun, it's not pretty, and a lot of people resent it. Even people who believe in social justice, in human rights, in civil rights, they don't want to hear about it.
No, they don't.
So it is sometimes a very lonely and frustrating job. And sometimes it is such a heavy burden that you have to take a break. It's like I've taken a break from my show In the Streets with Beverly Smith for a little while, but I'll be picking up a new podcast in January. It's going to be called Speaking Truth to Power.
Woo! I can't wait. Yes. I hope everybody everybody heard that. I hope everyone heard that. And you know what? When at the very end of this video, I want to get all of your links and your contact informations and your emails and all that, and I'll link it at the bottom of the YouTube video for sure, because your podcasts definitely need to be heard. No,
Well,
no joke.
I want to thank you for that. And I do have a new website, and I'll let you know all about that as we proceed.
Awesome, awesome. So, you were saying how it can be lonely, and how people don't want to hear it. I think that's a really important phrase that you said. People don't want to hear it. Even people who are already in the movement, already advocating, already kind of marching to that beat of unity, and we're all in this together and everyone is equal and all that. Even those individuals, if you push the bar just a little bit too much, even they will withdraw. Have you observed that yourself, especially in the pagan community? Let's focus on the pagan community for a moment. Have you observed that yourself at all?
Yes, actually I have. The pushback, I believe, comes from, especially within the pagan community, the wish for people to look like we are standing in unity. They want to look like they're on the side of justice. They want to look like they're interested in advocating for marginalized people and marginalized groups. However,
Right.
when it really comes right down to it, a lot of people I have discovered are, maybe ashamed is too hard of a word, but they are reluctant. They are reluctant to stand with marginalized people because either their clients, their friends, their family. And so there is a lot of pushback, particularly in the pagan community. I can't speak to the Christian community very much. I haven't been a Christian in 3 decades. So I cannot speak that much to the Christian community, how they approach this. But I have been involved in the pagan community, which it did involve many pagans of color. And we often interact on a yearly basis at a yearly convention called Pantheon. And we go to that convention. And let me tell you, in the years gone by, there's been quite a bit of drama. Less so in these latest years. But when I first went in 2014, 2015, there was a lot of drama. And there was pushback. There was pushback in the form of mockery, in the form of apathy and mockery, to the point where we, as pagans of color, had convened a caucus. Every year we convene a caucus of pagans of color where we express our concerns, our hopes, our dreams, work on strategy, work on ways that we can advocate for justice. And there was a daily paper at this 4-day convention. And one of the papers, there was 2 papers, the official paper and a satire paper. And one of those papers asked the questions, Black Lives Matter, why do we care? Okay, now this was not an official convention publication, but official enough that it was published by a group that publishes the satire newsletter every year, every day, at every convention. So while it was not put out by the powers that be, it gave the impression that that was the overriding opinion at the convention. So obviously we had a lot of unpacking to do. Obviously we had a lot of talking to do. And to their credit, the powers that be are trying to make gatherings like that more welcoming to pagans of color. But
recently,
in recent years, in the last couple of years. But you know, pagans love to sing, we all come from the goddess and all that. And they wouldn't throw water on, they wouldn't spit on me if I was on fire. I mean, we talk about unity, And well, girl, you know, there's enough colorism among pagans of color. There's enough colorism. Do you know what I'm
Of course.
saying? Who don't.
Of course. I mean, if you look at the term pagan in and of itself, a lot of times they use the term pagan to just identify pretty much everyone who is not of the three major religions of the world, which is, Judeo-Christian, Judaism, and Islam. And if they're not a part of that, everyone else is pagan. So if you really consider it like that, then yeah, the majority of pagans are pagans of color. So the sheer fact that you have a majority populace, and that majority populace is yet again being treated like a minority, like a fringe group.
Yes.
And that's a problem. And but see, here's the weird part. The weird part is that leaks into, that's everywhere in every culture. And how is it, what is it about that power dynamic? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Well, the reason that I believe it's in every culture, I think that's human nature. However, we need to grow up and out of that human nature. I believe it's human nature to relate to people who look like your tribe. It's self-protection. I mean, if someone came into your tribe's area that didn't look like you, they were probably planning to kill you and make off with your children and your wives.
Right.
So I think it's a basic aspect of human nature to be tribal, to be clannish, clan with a lowercase c, not with a k.
Lowercase.
I believe
yes.
that it's human nature to be clannish. However, we need to evolve out of that. We have given intelligence. We have been given information. We have been given the ability to travel the world, not as colonists, but as tourists. We have the ability to get to know people of other cultures and other tribes and other groups and other communities, and spread our wings and spread our human compassion to others beyond our tribe. Now, when you think of those who can only feel for their own tribe, I see them as lower evolved. I'm sorry.
Right. Me too.
I see them as not as evolved as those who are in their own spirituality, trying to understand that the rising tide lifts all boats. Did you hear what I'm saying? The rising tide lifts all boats. Injustice anywhere is a threat.
Is injustice
everywhere. That's what the good Dr. Reverend Dr. King said to us. Okay? And that's the truth. So I can't just worry about my Black people. I have to worry about my Afro-Latinas. I have to worry about my Latinos. I have to worry about my gay brethren, my queer friends. I have to worry about my poor friends. My cash poor friends, my working poor friends. I have to stand up for all of these members of my circle and my tribe, as well as everyone else. Because am I going to call myself a spiritual worker if I'm only looking after my own?
I am so glad you brought that up, because it's true. That is so freaking true. It's so frustrating, to navigate through social media, and you're looking at videos, or you're looking at posts, or you're looking at blogs written by spiritual leaders, spiritual elders. Okay, and these spiritual elders and these spiritual leaders will oftentimes avoid any kind of socio-political conversation, any kind of opportunity to voice their opinion, to stand up for, and this goes full circle to what you had observed, at PantheaCon and in some other places, is the fact that there's this reluctance, there's this pushback, even though they themselves might be a pagan of color. They will not stand up for that. And it makes me wonder, it makes me curious, what is it that's holding them back? Is it the money? Is it possibly that money that you don't want to lose from being too boisterous about a particular subject? Is it reputation? Is it losing clients in terms of like, you know, godchildren or initiates that have come into your coven or come into your house? What is it? What is it that's stopping you from taking that step forward and actually doing what it is, the spiritual work that we are called to do? Like, what is it? Why do we do that to each other? Do you have an answer to that?
Well, I believe it still boils down to perceptions. People don't want to look a certain way to their friends, to their coworkers, to their clients, to their family members, to their church members. And there is a lot of anti-Blackness in the world, not just America, but in the world. I mean, people will, when they see me, I can only speak for me, but when they're with me, we're all good. Everybody's happy. We're tight as can be. But they don't know me unless I'm right in front of their face. Do you see what I'm saying? They don't know me. They don't try to know me. They almost try to act like they don't know me unless they're face to face. And I don't take that as just being me. I take that as the human condition. I take that as people are unwilling to have their significant others in their lives, the important people in their lives, perceive them as caring about any issues that involve Black people. That's been my experience, or brown people. That's been my experience. So it's very disheartening, because how are we going to change? How are we going to change the world? How are we going to change this society unless we ask each other some of the hard questions, unless we're really willing to do some self-criticism and some unpacking of some of these really, really tough questions? How are we going to move forward unless we are willing to say, all right, there is a problem here. I'm going to acknowledge it, and I'm going to see what I can do in my small corner of the world. What can I do to open up a dialogue? What can I do to show that I stand in solidarity with someone who is in a marginalized position? Listen, for all of us, including me, all of us, there is always someone who is more oppressed than we are.
Right. Right.
We need to be constantly reaching down to uplift those who we would consider lesser than us. Now, listen, I don't use that expression lesser, but a lot of Christians love to quote that Bible verse about whatever you do to the least of these my brethren, you're doing unto me, the Christ. A lot of people like to do that. I don't like to do the lesser versus greater thing. However, if you are a believer and if you do quote the Bible, then may I remind you that you have been instructed to treat those you consider lesser like you would treat the Christ. Okay. Right. Now that's no different than pagans saying that karma, that what goes around comes around. That's no different than knowing that whatever we cast upon the waters is going to come back to us.
Right. That's a fact. And pagans being an earth religion as well. You know, it's this idea of being stewards of the earth. But that includes not just the trees, the rocks, the sky, and the water. That includes all living things that's on this earth.
Including
and in this
each
earth.
other. Including
each other.
Including
exactly.
But you know, it's really hard to get people to care, because there's always been this narrative. There's always been this assumption of the criminality of Black and brown people. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's very easy. It's very easy to turn people against people when you're like, well, they're just criminals. And you can even spend time with a Black person or a brown person and still walk away, even after that positive experience, still walk away with these old stereotypes.
Right.
It's always
Can you
always
give an example of that? Because that's stuff like that. You can see stuff like that all over the media. I remember 2 years ago the situation with the child falling into the ape cage,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it was two similar stories that literally happened the day after each other, with one with a black family and one with a white family. And the narrative, how that whole narrative was completely different.
completely
Um,
different. Not just the narrative from the media, but the narrative of people retelling the story, people like you and me retelling the story. The media handled those two families completely different. And so did people, average people like you and me. The narrative back then from average people like you and me for the white family was, oh my goodness, those poor people. Oh, how could they do such a thing? Why didn't they act faster to save the child? Why didn't they, and the child was saved. The child was saved. This is the child that was saved, right? Not the child that was killed. Was because there was a white child that was killed. But anyway, the child that was saved. The media and regular people like you and me were very, very compassionate towards the white family. The black family got the brunt of their resentment and their anger. It's like, why didn't they take better care of them kids? Oh, can you believe they shot the ape? Blah, 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 blah. It was very clear that white lives are very precious, but black lives don't matter at all. That was very clear. And the narrative is what helped to feed those perceptions.
Yeah. This is exactly what it is. And speaking, just kind of reverting back to the conversation about, because I always want to bring this back full circle with the pagan community. You had mentioned that you had started off as a druid high priestess and a teacher. And normally for a newcomer into the pagan community, right, when they look up the word druid, a lot of times it's associated with like these big, very like tall white men with like long white beards and everything. Now, granted, that is a complete, it's a fluff visual, but that is what they see when they go to look that up. So to be a high priestess of that kind of an order, what was that like for you? What was that experience like for you?
Well, I started in 1991 with the Druidic Craft of the Wise, the American Rite, and that's not right as in opposed to left, but RITE, the American Rite. And that was a tradition that I sought after to honor the great, let's see, my father's grandfather is Irish, to honor my great-grandfather. And I took classes and worked my way up. I became a teacher. This particular Druidic branch, I can't speak of them all, but this particular Druidic branch, you actually had to work and be of service and do the teachings and do the rituals and do the Sabbaths to actually work your way up into a priesthood. You could not pay to get into a priesthood. You had to work your way up and be initiated into the priesthood. And I spent 15 years in the priesthood, the last 5 of which I had been elevated into the high priesthood. I did retire.
Were you the only pagan of color? Did you experience anything negative during that time?
There was one other pagan of color. He was a priest, a Cubano, Cuban American, Eddie Gutierrez, and he was my co-priest, and we were pretty much, I believe, the only people of color in the whole organization. But we did our work, and we rose in the hierarchy, and I retired in 2009. So it's been a while.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
That is beautiful. And you had transitioned, and now you're exploring, and you've transitioned, and you've entered into the world of Conjure.
Yes, well, I've always kind of been very interested in herbalisms and the magical energies of plants. I think a lot of pagan religions incorporate plant energies into their magic. So that was very easy for me to assimilate, was to that interest in the herbalism. And so that naturally grew. My friend Eddie started being very interested in Conjure in about 10 years or so ago, and started introducing me to it and reminding me that it is very similar to the herbalism, to the magical herbalism of the West Indies. And that's called, in Jamaica, magical herbalism is called Obeah. So he was telling me it was very similar to Obeah. So I started studying with him, a little bit here and there, not that seriously. And in the last 3 or 4 years, actually, since he died, he died in 2014. And that's when I became very interested in Conjure as a magical practice. And so I am now doing that. Social justice, still my religion.
Exactly. But I was just going to ask you that, because it's true. One of the things that I saw you post not too long ago, it was pretty long ago, but it stuck in my mind as if it was yesterday.
Yeah.
When you had posted, and this is paraphrasing, that you didn't understand when people questioned, whether or not you felt comfortable posting political things in contrast to your spirituality.
Right.
And instead you voiced it with, no, my politics is my spirituality. This is what we're here for. Absolutely. Which again kind of brings it back full circle. It's like, why are we here if not to fight for each other, if not to evolve together, if not to help each other grow and ascend? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And you just hit it right on the knob there. Right on the knob.
I think what happened to me was about 3 or 4 years ago, when Michael Brown was killed. I could not understand why some of the people in my lives, I have some friends who call themselves shaman. All right. Now, I do not like to use that term loosely, because I think it's one of the most wrongly appropriated terms ever. But these folks call themselves shamans. And I wondered, why was it that they said nothing, absolutely nothing, not one word about any social justice issue? I will say that they were interested in social justice issues for gay people because they were gay, but they said not one word. So I approached them and I said, how do you call yourself a shaman? Understand, this person and I were friends at the time. I said, how do you call yourself a shaman, and yet you absolutely avoid all political discussions? You know what this person told me? I do not mix my politics with my spirituality. What kind of sense does that make? That makes no sense.
You hear it a lot, though. You hear that a lot. Yeah.
How can you consider your spirituality without your fellow men, without your fellow humans? How can you stand there and talk about you're a spiritual person and you have nothing in your heart for your spirit, for other spiritual beings like yourself? How can you have nothing in your heart for them? It makes no sense to me.
You know what some of the biggest arguments for that is, and I hear this a lot, is, when we talk about the chakras, right? Yeah. It seems to permeate throughout all these different spiritual traditions. It seems to find its way in there, and they reword it as something else everywhere. But when we talk about these shamans, we talk about chakras. We talk about these levels of mastery, yes. Right? And a lot of times you'll hear spiritual people say, I don't mix politics with religion because politics is of a lower level, lower vibrational, mundane, worldly stuff. And I myself am a spiritual person. I'm trying to elevate, and so I'm only focusing on the heart chakras and above. So I'm not dealing with that. And it always just boggled my mind because, as you and I both know, there is absolutely no evolution, no ascension without first having mastered the lower levels.
Absolutely.
Zero, none. We both know this. So for you to ignore something in plain sight, for you to walk down the street and see a person of color getting brutalized, potentially sidewalk executed, and you not do anything, take a video, call someone, anything, just keep walking.
What bothers me is that they don't even express their outrage. They don't even express their concern. There's no expression.
No expression.
And it makes you wonder, are these people willing to see me, Beverly? Are they willing to see me killed in the street? Killed maybe at a traffic stop? You have to wonder. I look at them and say, would they stay absolutely silent if they woke up tomorrow and saw video of me being killed behind the wheel of my car, and they know I'm not a violent person and they know I'm not committing any crimes? And besides, even if somebody is committing a crime, are we really going to tolerate curbside judge, jury, and executioners? Are we really going to tolerate curbside justice? It makes me wonder, how do people call themselves, how do people say that they have friends and loved ones of marginalized people and then stay completely silent on these life and death matters? Because you know what? It really is life and death. It's
life and
death. I could get behind the wheel tonight and get stopped, and somebody could fear for his life as he walks up to the car and kill me in cold blood. And there will be motherfuckers, pardon my expression, but there will be mofos tomorrow talking about how I deserved it. Okay.
Yeah, it's
strangers.
And this is something as a spiritual community.
Right.
Whether you're a client, whether you're a student, whether you're a teacher or an elder, this is something as a spiritual community we need to iron out. We need to really talk to each other about this. We need to start getting some skeletons out of the closet. We need to start doing a lot of shadow work, a lot of internal work, and most importantly, we need to start holding each other accountable. Right. So when we're in this community and you're going to go and you're going to buy a product from somebody, for example, who is a spiritual business owner.
Right.
Make sure you know what they stand for. What are they doing for their community?
Right.
How are they living the example of being a spiritual person and serving their community? And then determine whether you want to buy a product, right? If you are getting a reading from someone, or if you are going to be a reader, what is it that you are contributing? How are you healing that person? If you're going to do spell work for someone, you're going to do conjure. How are you elevating those spirits and those people that you are working for, and not just taking that money? These are just small bits and pieces that our community has to deal with, but at least it's manageable because it's within this very small community. It's manageable, and that's why I wanted you on the show, for you to express that, to express what your experiences were. And you're right, the problem, a lot of the problem is with image, a lot of the problem is with narrative, in terms of what are people hearing, what are people being exposed to. Maybe they just don't have the correct information.
Absolutely.
And that's okay, that happens. I mean, personally, just I don't want to sound, what's the right word? I don't want to sound arrogant, but in the age of technology, to say that you don't have access to the correct information is a little bit almost not an excuse anymore. But I get it, because there's so many websites out there, you can't tell if it's real or not. There's just a lot. The way that it's all put together is very fishy. So with that said, I mean, how do we change the narrative? Like, how does someone know the difference? How does I know you had mentioned that you had a story that can really compare how those things work out.
Absolutely.
And I would love for you to express that, because I think if people had it in terms of in terms of something tangible and something that they can relate to. And you being a storyteller and a good one at that, maybe they'll get it. Maybe they'll get the point.
Well, I do have a story. It's a story that reminds us, it reminds us to always question the official story. Always question the official narrative. Now, you may remember this story. It's about a little yellow-haired gal. Do you remember her name?
Goldilocks.
That's right, girls. Goldilocks. Let me tell you a story about Goldilocks. All right. This is called, it's called The Golden Bandit, and it's by Tony Cade Bambara. It's written by Tony Cade Bambara, and it's called The Golden Bandit. All right, so once upon a time, there was this little yellow-haired gal, and her name was Goldilocks. And she was walking in the forest one day, and she came upon this lovely house. Well, she knocked on the door, and nobody answered. No one was at home. So what did she do? She went in. Yes, she broke in. So, what do we call people who break into other people's houses? We call them burglars, felons, the uninvited. So this little burglar child, she walks into their living room where a lovely set of fine crafted furniture caught her eye. 3 chairs in particular look real good to her. So, did she behave herself? No. She got up in those chairs, laid up all over those people's chairs, and broke them up. That's right, broke them up. What do we call people who come into somebody's house uninvited and then commence to wreck the place? We call them vandals, bushwhackers, cops. Okay? So she comes in. She laid all over the furniture, broke it down. She then got up and walked into the kitchen where there was a beautiful Panama fruit salad in the fridge and some rice and peas in the crock pot. Oh, yeah, I heard that. And she went and turned up the heat under those greens so that the lid started rattling when the steam started boiling. And then she turned up the oil on the skillet until that jerk chicken just started popping and frying in that polyunsaturated low cholesterol fat, just like in my house. Then turn on the oven, turned it up till that baked macaroni and cheese was just popping and just puffing up and oozing over the side, all golden brown and cheesy. Have mercy. Well, did she act like she had some home training? Oh, no. What did she do? Ate like a natural fool. All right. So after she stuffed her belly with these folks' food, she proceeded up to their bedroom. Did you hear what I said, good people? Good people, did you hear what I said? Can anyone say shameless hussy?
Shameless hussy.
Shameless hussy. And what did she do? She got in their bed with her shoes on, the nasty heifer.
Nasty heifer.
Nasty heifer. Okay, so rock along. By and by, the folks came home. And did she offer an apology for all these antisocial goings on? Because what do you call people who come into your house, not invited in the first or second place, and apply a scorch and destroy policy to other people's food crops. We call them colonists, imperial invaders, fascists, dogs, thieving, thieves, unnatural disaster. Well, did she offer an apology for these antisocial goings on? Oh, no, she didn't, the unrepentant little criminal. Did she call her daddy to come on down with his carpenter box to replace that broken door? To fix that broken door? No, she didn't. Do you think she called her mama to come down with the credit card to replace those broken chairs?
Nope.
Nope. No, she did not. And having messed with the folks' groceries, do you think she consulted the yellow pages under R to have some supper brought round? No, she didn't. Okay, did she at least strip off those nasty sheets and run them down to the speed wash? You know she didn't. You know she didn't. Did she even say good evening? Oh, no, she did not. What did she do? What did she do? She jumped out the window and ran off like the sneak thief that she was. Now, when she arrived home with her hair all mussed up and chicken bones clinging to her clothes, did she explain and confess by way of explaining her greasy appearance? No.
Probably not.
Did she elicit the help of her parents, presumably grown-ups, presumably grown and capable of analyzing the normative values of their tribe, community, household that gave rise to the sociopathic behavior of their warped little offspring? In short, good people, did this little unrepentant retrograde criminal engage in principled self-criticism? Oh, hell no. What did she do? She said some bears were chasing her.
Oh.
She said some bears were chasing her. So she's a liar on top of everything else. Now, listen, I know that some of y'all, some of us, some of your listeners, this little yellow-haired gal was one of their childhood heroes. I know, because she was one of mine too, but I was young and foolish.
Yep.
I was young and foolish at the time. Now that I'm grown, I ask myself, is it hip, wise, or even healthy to inflict the official version of the yellow bandit on young children before we have assumed the necessary task of educating and equipping the young in a critical habit? No.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you.
No. A critical habit is crucial, wouldn't you say? A critical habit is crucial, afflicted as we are with authorized versions, lies, distortions, cover-ups, disinformation, fake news.
Yeah.
A critical habit is crucial because sometimes the official text is a context.
Woo!
Did you hear what I'm saying? Can you
hear it?
Sometimes the official text is a context.
Yes.
Got that right. And that is what 3 convicted bears and their lawyers are claiming on appeal.
Yes.
The end.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's the way you tell the story.
It's the way you tell the story. This whole time, the bears were the bad guy. Oh my gosh.
The bears may not even have been involved. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Seriously.
Because
Seriously.
he did all of that crime and then blamed it on the bears.
Yeah. My goodness. The context and the language too. You know, this whole idea of critical thinking. Critical thinking is something that they teach you. You know, it's funny. My nephew, he's about 12 years old, and you know, sometimes he comes in, he goes, "Ah, Titi, you know, I really hate math. It's just, I mean, all we really need to know is how to balance a checkbook and how to do percentages for giving a good tip and all this. Like, we don't need the rest of it." And it's like, no, my man, it's not about the math. It's about the critical thinking. It's about the fact you have to sit there and work through each problem, each step of that problem. And you have to explain the step before as to why you got to the next part of that problem.
Absolutely.
And all the way until you get to that answer. Because the teacher doesn't want to just see the answer. She wants to see the critical thinking and the process that your mind went through to get that answer. And it's the same thing when it comes to language. It's the same thing when it comes to philosophical discussions and really asking yourself those fundamental questions like, do human lives matter? You know, Black lives, do they matter? These are fundamental questions that unfortunately some people have to ask themselves, and others just naturally know, no. It matters, but
they are affected. They are influenced by the narrative. That's why I told that story of the Golden Bandit. That's why I told that story, because it's a familiar story that everyone has grown up hearing, but they haven't heard it from that other angle. They haven't heard it. We've been taught it from a different angle where Goldilocks is almost an innocent troublemaker that's causing trouble in passing, but it's totally innocent. And so that story is told, that narrative is pushed forward, and the blame gets shifted onto the bears who terrorized her at the end. We have to remember that everything that is said in the media, that everything that is put forward to us as an official story, as an official narrative, we have to give it the critical thinking test. You have to give it, you have to look at it and say, does this make sense to me? Is this consistent? Is this consistent with what I know? Is this consistent with what I believe? And how does it challenge the stereotypes, the lies, and the preconceptions that I have built into my psyche?
Exactly.
We always have to apply a critical habit. We have to develop a critical habit.
And I think also too, this idea of, you know, coming full circle with spiritual individuals, it's just, hi, Ambrosine, good night to you too.
Good night.
It's just, it's this idea of, you know, whether the narrative was in favor of or opposed to, someone is asking for help. Someone is expressing that they are not being treated fairly, right? Someone is expressing that they are hurt and they are suffering,
right?
Despite all the other factors, that is a human being expressing that they are suffering. And as another human being, the goal, the initiative, the instinct should be, key word, right?
Yes.
Should, to help, right? To serve, to assist, to include, to remedy, to engage, to fight for, to advocate for, whatever, right? So here in the pagan community, you know, they may be misinformed, they may have issues with whatever the case may be, right? The information, the experiences, whatever the case may be. I'm not making any excuses and I'm not placing any blame.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, in the pagan community, we have pagans of color that are saying, we're here.
Mm-hmm.
We're going through some issues right now
Mm-hmm.
in the world as a whole, in our community as a whole. And we're coming to our spiritual systems, the places where in the past, normally, if something went wrong, that was a place of refuge.
Right.
So we're coming here and we're asking for help and we're asking for servitude and we're asking for something
For
to be done. Solidarity. Just to simply say, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not getting it. So
it comes down to this discomfort that people have in offering comfort and solidarity to marginalized people. There's a discomfort there, and we have to get past that. We have to find a way.
And you know what it really starts with? It starts with getting rid of self, I think, in my opinion. I think it has to stop being about your own personal comfort and start being about your service to someone else. You know why? Because serving others who are suffering is painful. Watching people who are suffering is painful. Getting involved and putting yourself out there is painful. But you know what? It's not about you.
No.
And that's the part that we need to let go of, is that ego, is that part of like, well, this makes me uncomfortable. I want to help, but it really makes me uncomfortable. Well, it's not about you. And that's what you're here for. That's what your job is. Do it. You know? So if you could have a utopian situation, if the narrative was flipped and you could have it your way, what would that narrative look like to you? At least in our pagan community, what does that look like to you?
Well, girl, if I could write the narrative, I would not have to argue my humanity. If I could write the narrative, I would not argue anyone's humanity. I think that's the first step to what we would call utopia. Do I really believe that utopia can exist? No, but I believe it's our responsibility to constantly try to move towards it. And so for me, a utopian society would be people who are willing to dialogue with each other. A utopian society would be people who are willing to hear each other out. For me, a utopian society would be people who are willing to hear and consider someone else's point of view. For me, a utopian community would not be my fellow pagans asking, why do you always post so much black stuff on your timeline? Because I'm black? That would be a utopian community, a utopian experience for me. A utopian experience for me, if I could change the narrative, is that we would stand together and say, this matters to us. I recognize the human in you. I recognize and I honor your humanity as you recognize and honor mine. We have to, and all of us, to different degrees, have bought into this concept of white supremacy. We have to unpack that because it is a fallacy. It is a construct that was developed so that colonization could take place across the globe, so that genocide would be all right in our own soil. White supremacy was set forward so that people could be enslaved, so that people could be destroyed, so that land and resources could be stolen. It's time for us to address the fallacy of white supremacy, because the fallacy of white supremacy is that white skin makes you superior. And that, in my eyes, is the basis of all of the apathy. Because quite frankly, even people of color have been conditioned and socialized not to give a shit about people of color. Did you hear what I'm saying? Can you feel me? I'll say it again. I'll say it again louder for the people in the back. Even people of color have been socialized not to care about people of color. The old legend goes that if black people saw a white man selling ice and a black man selling ice, the same ice, they'd buy it from the white man because the white man's ice must be colder and fresher. Do you see what I'm saying? Anti-blackness is deeply rooted in our society. And until we have a frank conversation about it, which would, in my view, be a utopia, is to actually sit down and have a frank conversation without the tears, without the anger, without the acrimony. If we could sit down and have a frank conversation where we acknowledge each other's humanity, then I believe that that would be a great starting point. That, to me, would be my utopia, is let's have a conversation. Why aren't more people having this conversation that you and I are having? Why aren't more people asking themselves, how can I be true to my character and my spirituality and stand up for what I know is right?
Right.
And if they're not willing to do that, they need to unpack that and ask themselves why that is.
Right. Exactly.
Because we all know in our hearts what's right.
Exactly. We all know deep down inside. We all know deep down inside what's right. And when someone comes to you out of suffering, your response should not be, but.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly. And to bring it back around to us as pagan people, if we say that our mother is the earth, if we acknowledge, as we claim that we do, that we have one human ancestor, the mother of all, I mean, do you know what I'm saying? We all share a human ancestor, the mother of humanity. They call her Lucy, a woman from Africa.
Right.
If, and I don't remember right now which country in Africa it is. I don't like sometimes when people speak of Africa as being a single country. We know it's a continent with many, many, many countries. But if we acknowledge that as people who call ourselves children of the earth, because that's what pagan means, children of the earth.
Yes.
We're not really claiming a sky daddy because all of us have different pantheons. All of us have different beliefs. All of us have different gods and different divinities that we answer to. But as pagans, we acknowledge that we all have one mother, and that's Mother Earth. Well, we are stuck on Mother Earth together. We're here.
Got to figure it out.
As pagans, we don't believe in heaven. We don't believe that we're going to be taken and transported to a better place at a different time. We don't believe in that. It's all right here.
Right now.
It's all right here and right now. And so if we truly believe that we all come from the goddess, then we need to step up and behave like it.
Beverly, you have been an absolute pleasure. This was amazing. This was an amazing conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's been
Thank you.
so cool. I love telling that story. That was a great story.
I love it too. Tell people how they can get a hold of you, where they can reach you, and I'll also link all of those things at the bottom of the video as well. But if you can let people know now, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, for those who are still interested in social justice information, social justice news, you can find me on Facebook on In the Streets with Beverly Smith. You can also find my webpage for readings, root work, and spiritual advice. You can find me at docbev.com. That's like drbeverly.com, docbev.com. I'll also be revealing in the next day or two a new Facebook page for Dr. Beverly, Spiritual Gangster.
You better friend me.
I will. I will.
All right, everyone. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us tonight, and for Beverly, thank you so much. I know it was a bit of a stumbly beginning yesterday and today, but we did it, and I'm just so happy that we were able to do this. And I hope that in the future we can have another conversation. So let's see what happens.
Absolutely. I would love it. And thank you. I wish the video had been working because I look so cute. But thank you so much.
I want to see you.
Thank you so much. And a blessed solstice and a blessed Yule tide to you and to everyone. Happy holidays, everyone, and blessed Yule tide to everyone. Thank you so much. Good night. God bless.
Good night, everybody.